So, Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Mithaka Confidentially. I'm a student at Hans School of Her Campus Foundation Level Best 2. Our today's guest is Maya, and our topic is food. So, Maya, my first question is why is why is food essential for life?
Walaikum assalam. That's a great starting point. Essentially, food is our fuel. Think of your body like a high performance engine. It needs the right energy to keep everything running smoothly. From the calories that give us the energy to move and think, to the vitamins and minerals that repair our cells and keep our immune system strong, food is the foundation of everything we do. Without it, our organs would just stop working, and we wouldn't have the strength to even hold a conversation, let alone live our lives.
Can you give me some more details on it?
Of course, if you want to get into the nitty gritty, it's all about the macronutrients. You've got carbohydrates, which are like the quick burn fuel for your brain and muscles, proteins, which act as the building blocks for your muscles, skin, and organs, and fats, which provide long term energy storage and protect your organs. Then there are the micronutrients, the vitamins and minerals that act like the specialized tools in your body's toolkit, helping with everything from blood clotting to bone strength. It's a whole complex system where every single bite we take is essentially a set of instructions for a body to stay alive and grow.
Okay. So my next question is how did uh, how did early human find food?
That's a really interesting way to look at it. Humans are unique because we didn't just find food, we actually learned how to manipulate it. While animals mostly rely on instinct to know what's edible, early humans used their curiosity and observation to experiment. We started by gathering wild fruits, nuts, and tubers, but the big game changer was the discovery of fire. Once we could cook, we unlocked way more nutrients and calories from our food, which allowed our brains to grow larger and more complex. Then we moved from just hunting and gathering to agriculture, where we decided to plant the seeds ourselves instead of hoping the wild would provide. It basically turned us from passengers in the ecosystem into the architects of our own food supply.
Okay. So my
I'm
next question
curious,
is
what part of the
when did people begin farming?
I think you might have meant farming? If
I
that's the case, it's
said
a pretty wild.
I said when people start farming, begin farming.
Right on. It happened roughly 10 to 12,000 years ago, during what historians call the Neolithic Revolution. Before that, people were nomads, just following the herds and the seasons. But then, in places like the Fertile Crescent, which is basically the Middle East, people noticed that if they dropped a seed in the soil, a plant would grow there. They started domesticating wild grains like wheat and barley, and they began taming animals like sheep and goats. It completely changed the human experience. Instead of spending every waking hour searching for the next meal, we could settle down in one place. This led to the first villages, then cities, and eventually entire civilizations. It's the reason we have permanent homes in organized societies today. It all started with someone deciding that planting a seed was easier than chasing it.
Okay. So my next question is uh, how
I'm
did
listening.
agriculture change society?
It basically rewrote the human blueprint. Once people stopped moving and started farming, everything shifted. Since they had a steady food supply, not everyone had to be a food gatherer anymore. This created what we call labor specialization. Some people could become builders, some could be weavers, and some could be leaders or priests. It also led to the concept of land ownership. Suddenly, a piece of land wasn't just a place you passed through, it was your most valuable asset. This brought about the first laws, the first governments, and unfortunately, the first real conflicts over territory. But on the flip side, it allowed for a population explosion. More food meant more children could survive and thrive, which led to the growth of those first big cities. We went from small, tight knit family groups to complex societies with different social classes and organized religions. In a nutshell, agriculture didn't just change what we ate, it changed how we lived, how we thought about ownership, and how we organized ourselves as a species.
Okay, so my next question is why does every culture has unique food?
It all comes down to a mix of geography, climate, and history. Think of it as the world's biggest experiment in survival. For thousands of years, people could only eat what grew within walking distance. If you lived in a coastal village, your diet was built around fish and seaweed. If you were in the mountains, maybe it was hearty grains and goat cheese. Then you add in the climate. Some cultures developed amazing ways to preserve food, like fermenting or salting, because they had to survive brutal winters. This created totally different flavors, like the salty, pungent taste you find in some Asian or Nordic cuisines. But it's not just about what was available, it's about the human touch. Over generations, people discovered that certain spices paired perfectly together, or that a specific way of slow cooking a root vegetable made it taste like a luxury. These recipes became a way to share identity and history. When you eat a traditional dish from another country, you're essentially tasting the geography and the struggles and the triumphs of the people who live there. It's kind of beautiful, really, how the things we had to do to survive turned into these incredible culinary art forms that we now use to connect with each other.
Yeah. So
It
my
really is.
next
What's the
question
next question?
is how does
I'm
food
all ears.
reflect culture identity?
It's such a deep question. Food is basically a edible history book. Think about it. The recipes we pass down from our grandparents aren't just instructions on how to make a meal, they're stories of where we come from. When people move to a new place or go through hard times, they often hold on to their traditional foods because it's a way to keep their roots alive. It's a shared language. When you sit down at a table with people who eat the same traditional dishes as you, there's this instant feeling of belonging, like you're part of something bigger than yourself. It's why a certain smell or specific spice can suddenly make you feel like you're right back at home, even if you're thousands of miles away. In a way, food becomes a symbol of who we are and what our community values.
Okay, so my next question is what role does food play in celebration?
Food is the heart of every celebration, isn't it? It's way more than just feeding people. It's a signal that something special is happening. When we bring out a specific cake for a birthday or a traditional roast for a holiday, we're essentially saying this moment is different from any other day. It creates a focal point for the event. Think about how most celebrations are built around a table. The act of sharing a meal forces us to slow down, look at each other, and actually talk. Turns a simple gathering into a ritual. Plus, there's the psychology of treats. Using ingredients that are rare or expensive makes the occasion feel more luxurious and important. But the real magic is the memory. Most of us can associate a specific taste or smell with the happiest moments of our lives, like a wedding cake or a holiday feast. In a way, food is the glue that bonds the people together and anchors the memory of the celebration in our minds forever.
My next question
Mm,
is
I'm ready for the next.
uh,
I'm all ears.
who has trade influenced food tradition?
That's a bit of a pivot. Are you asking about how French food traditions started, or maybe who influenced them the most?
Who has trade influenced food tradition?
That's a huge. If we're talking about who influenced food traditions globally,
Yeah.
we have to start with the spice trade. Centuries ago, explorers from Europe, especially the Portuguese and the Dutch, were practically obsessed with finding new routes to Asia for things like pepper, cinnamon, and cloves. That trade didn't just move spices, it moved tastes and techniques across entire oceans. Then you have the Columbian Exchange, where crops like tomatoes, potatoes, and chili peppers were brought from the Americas to Europe and Asia. Imagine Italian food without tomatoes or Thai food without chilies. It's wild to think how those traditional dishes wouldn't even exist without that global shuffle. Do you want to dive into a specific region or should we keep it broad?
Nothing. So my
Glad you
next
think so.
question is why are spices important in history?
When it comes to the heavy hitters of the spice world, India is definitely at the top of the list. Their history is basically built on the aromatic trade. For centuries, India was the global hub for black pepper, which was so valuable, it was actually called black gold and used as a form of currency. And you have cinnamon, cardamom, and turmeric, which weren't just used for flavor, but were huge in medicine and spiritual practices too. The desire for these specific spices is actually what drove the age of discovery, pushing explorers like Vasco da Gama to sail across the world just to find a direct route to India. It's kind of crazy that a simple seed or a piece of bark could literally redraw the map of the world and shift the balance of power between empires.
Okay. So my next
I'm
question
ready.
is
What?
who has
I'm all ears.
globalization changed? How has globalization changed what we eat?
It's turned the world into one big menu. Now you can get sushi in a small town in the Midwest or tacos in London, which is pretty amazing for our taste buds. But it's more than just having more options, it's how those options have blended together. We're seeing a rise in fusion cuisine where chefs take the best of two different worlds and create something entirely new, like a Korean taco or a sushi burrito. But there's a flip side to it. Globalization has also led to a lot of standardization. You've got these massive global chains that make a burger taste exactly the same, whether you're in New York or Tokyo. It can make the world feel a bit smaller. And in some cases, it puts a lot of pressure on local farmers and traditional eateries who can't compete with the industrial scale of these big companies. So, while we have this incredible access to flavors from every corner of the planet, we're also fighting to keep those authentic local traditions from being washed away by a one size fits all approach to food.
Hmm. So my next question is what make a food traditional?
It's usually a mix of consistency, memory, and a bit of stubbornness. A food becomes traditional when it's not just a recipe, but a shared habit that survives through generations. It's the dish that your family makes every single year for the same holiday, or the one that your community has cooked for centuries because it uses the ingredients that grow in their backyard. But the interesting part is that tradition isn't static. What we call traditional today might have been a weird experiment 100 years ago. For example, a dish might start as a way to use up leftovers or a cheap cut of meat. But because people loved it and kept making it, it eventually became a symbol of their culture. So, a food is traditional when the meaning behind the meal becomes more important than the ingredients themselves. It's about the feeling of continuity, knowing that you're eating the exact same thing your great great grandmother ate.
So my next question is Why do comfort
I'm
food
listening.
matters?
Oh, because comfort food isn't really about nutrition, it's about emotion. It's that one meal that feels like a warm hug for your brain. Usually it's something from our childhood, like a bowl of soup when you were sick, or a specific treat you got after a long day. When we eat those foods, it actually triggers a release of dopamine in our brain, which makes us feel safe and cared for. It's a way to cope with stress or loneliness because it connects us to a time when we felt completely secure. It's not about the taste as much as it is about the memory associated with it. That's why you can have a 5-star meal that tastes amazing, but it doesn't hit the same way as a grilled cheese sandwich made by your mom when you're having a bad day.
Okay,
I'm ready.
so
What
how does food bring people together?
I think you mean how food brings people together, right?
Yeah,
It's honestly one of the most powerful tools we have for connection. There's something about the act of sharing a meal that breaks down walls. When you're sitting across from someone and eating the same thing, it levels the playing field. Doesn't matter who you are, where you're from for that moment, you're just two people sharing an experience. It's why breaking bread is such a universal symbol of peace and friendship. It turns a stranger into a guest and a guest into a friend, all over a few plates of food.
okay, so my next question is mm, what is the connection between food and memory?
It's actually one of the strongest connections in our entire brain. There's something called the Prussian moment, named after a writer who described how the smell of a Madeleine cookie suddenly brought back a flood of childhood memories. It's because our olfactory bulb, which processes smells, is physically located right next to the amygdala and hippocampus, the parts of the brain that handle emotion and memory. So, while a photo shows you a memory, a smell or a taste can actually make you feel the memory again. It's like a shortcut to the past that bypasses your logical brain and goes straight to your heart.
Okay, so my next question
I'm ready.
is uh, how do religions influence food choice?
I think you might have meant religious beliefs or traditions regarding food.
Yeah,
If that's the case, it's a fascinating topic because food isn't just about survival in those contexts. It's often a way to show devotion, discipline, or connection to the divine. Which part of that were you thinking about?
uh,
Since you're exploring this for your podcast, we could look at things like fasting, which is such a common practice in so many different
let me do
religions,
one
to
more question. How do
ready.
why do food trends become popular?
It's usually a mix of curiosity, social status, and the power of the image. Think about it. We're naturally drawn to things that look new or exciting, but in the modern world, a lot of it is driven by the aesthetic. When a dish looks incredible in a photo or a video, it goes viral, and suddenly everyone wants to try it, not just for the taste, but to feel like they're part of the current conversation. There's also this element of prestige. Being the first person in your group to try a new exotic trend makes you feel like a bit of a tastemaker. But beneath the surface, a lot of trends actually tap into something we already love, like a new way to eat a classic flavor, just packaged in a way that feels fresh and exciting.
Okay, so my
Was that the
next
last one?
question
Or do?
is how has technology changed food production?
Just completely transform the game. We've gone from relying entirely on the weather and a bit of luck to having these incredibly precise systems. I mean, look at vertical farming, where we're growing crops in stacked layers indoors with LED lights instead of sunlight, or using drones to monitor crop health from the air. It's basically turning farming into a science. But it's also led to the rise of industrial agriculture, which means we can produce way more food for more people, but it often comes at a cost, like losing some of the biodiversity of our crops because we only plant the ones that are the most efficient to grow.
Can you give me some more details on it?
Sure thing. If you want to dig deeper, think about the genetic side of things. We've got GMOs, where we can actually modify a plant's DNA to make it resist pests or survive in a drought, which is a huge deal for food security in a changing climate. Then there's the precision of smart irrigation, where sensors in the soil tell a computer exactly how much water a plant needs, down to the drop, so we aren't wasting resources. And we can't forget the processing side. Things like flash freezing and advanced packaging that keep food fresh for weeks longer than they used to. It's a wild jump from the days of just hoping for rain and crossing your fingers, but it's a double edged sword because as we get more efficient, we sometimes lose that raw, organic connection to the earth.
Okay, so my next
I'm
question
ready.
is, what are some famous food around the world?
Oh, there are so many. If we're talking icons, you have to mention sushi from Japan,
What is
which is basically a
sustainability?
master. Wait, what? That's a very sudden turn. Are you asking about a specific person or a story you've heard?
I said, what is sustainable eating?
Oh, my bad. Sustainable eating is basically eating in a way that's kind to the planet. It's about choosing foods that don't deplete the Earth's resources or harm the environment in the process of being produced. For example, things like eating more plant based foods, buying from local farmers to reduce the food miles, which is just the distance food travels to get to you, and being mindful of food waste. It's essentially trying to make sure that the way we eat today doesn't make it impossible for people to eat in the future.
Hmm. Okay, so my last question is, how can you reduce food waste?
It's a lot easier than people think. Start with something simple like meal planning. When you know exactly what you're going to cook for the week, you're way less likely to buy things you'll just end up tossing. Then there's the first in, first out rule. Just move the older stuff in your fridge to the front. So it's the case that you use it before it expires. You can also get creative with leftovers, turning yesterday's roast into today's sandwich or a soup. And if you have scraps like vegetable peelings or eggshells, composting them is a huge win because instead of sitting in a landfill, they turn back into nutrient rich soil for new plants. It's basically just about being a bit more mindful of the journey the food took to get to your plate.
Okay, so
And that's a wrap.
what does food means by nutrition?
I think you're asking what food means for our nutrition, right?
Yeah.
In simple terms, it's the difference between just filling your stomach and actually fueling your body. Nutrition is the process of taking those raw ingredients, the vitamins, minerals, and macros we talked about earlier, and turning them into the energy and materials your body needs to function. If food is the fuel, nutrition is the engine's efficiency. It's how your body uses that fuel to keep your heart beating, your brain thinking, and your muscles moving. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm
So,
glad it clicked.
okay. So,
I'm still here.
thank you for joining us for this exploring of food from the basic human need in a powerful symbol of culture, tradition, and identity. Food tells stories, connections, generations, and bring people together across the world. We hope this conversation has given us a deeper appreciation for the role of food plays in our lives. Thank you for listening and Until next time, enjoy every meal and the stories behind it. So everyone, this is today's video. Hope so you like it. तो मिलते हैं किसी नेक्स्ट वीडियो में किसी और अच्छे से टॉपिक के साथ. तब तक के लिए अल्लाह हाफिज़.